So why am I in the race for governor? Well, when I was looking for a candidate to support, and I was looking at the issues that were important to me, I looked for someone who really had a passion for education, who would really stand up and say, I will be a governor that makes sure that all children in Connecticut have an opportunity, an equal opportunity, and can read by the time they're in 3rd grade. It does 2 things. It's morally right, but it's economically smart. Because if we can get those kids to read and prepare them for the job growth that we need to create, we're going to keep them as productive citizens in our state. And I don't think we can afford to lose anybody in our state. I think we can't afford to miss an opportunity to have successful, productive taxpayers that give back to their community, that live in your towns and cities, and that don't put a pressure on a correction system. I was also looking for a candidate that would focus on fiscal responsibility. In my community, I have a record of 20 years of public service. In the town of Simsbury, last night I delivered a budget of 0.27%. The year before, I delivered a budget of -3%. I worked with all 6 of the town unions to come up with collaborative ways to save money. I'm a big proponent of regional government and having important strong core cities by having core suburbs. I don't think you can have a strong, healthy town unless you have a strong, healthy core city. And Hartford Magazine just named me one of the top 50 leaders as a proponent of regionalism in the Hartford region. And I've been a proponent for a long time. So I was looking for a candidate that would talk about how we have to strengthen not only our fiscal responsibility, but also regional cooperation. One of the things that I thought was really important in having a candidate who understands municipal government and state government was the fact that if you look around, the only places that get it right are the local level of government. In our community, we meet our pension obligations because we owe it to our workers. We fund it 100%. Our investments decreased 30% last year, our pension investments, and that was the first budget number that we plugged in, and you know about decreasing investments. But our pension obligations were 30% decrease. We met that obligation first. We keep our reserves. We honor our reserves because it makes for healthy communities. It makes for healthy bond ratings. The fact that the state of Connecticut is on a watch list should scare all of us throughout the entire state because all of our towns and cities are being exposed to a state that's not fiscally sound. I also, what you see in the towns and cities is that we collaborate. In our community, we were one of the first towns to offer a wellness program for our employees because we know that if we can get preventative care and early intervention and wellness, it's going to make our employees more healthy, and it's going to also save us money in the health care program. So we're one of the first towns to offer that program as well. I was looking for someone who was talking about housing and the need for workforce housing and the need to create sustainable and livable communities. And I think that's really, really important. When you look at what's happening in the federal government, where you're having opportunities to really integrate housing with transportation, with walkability, with workforce housing, that will keep young people in our state. And you guys are in a prime location because you have access to mass transit, you have places to grow and keep young people here. And of all the statistics that I hear along the campaign trail and that I've worked on in my career at the Capitol is the scariest one is that we're losing more young people to other states than any other state in the country. And that should make us all lose sleep, because that means that not only our children are leaving Connecticut, they won't be here to raise their families and to be part of our Sunday dinners and to be part of our experiences, but also they're not going to be taxpayers. They're not going to buy the homes that we're going to be selling. They're not going to take the jobs. They're not going to pay the bills that we're going to need to pay. So we are an aging state. And without having young people here to invest in the job growth, this could be the best year that we've had as a state financially. I know my own family. I have 3 kids, and my daughter's graduating in May, and son in college, and another son going to college. So you know where all my money is going. It's not going, I'm not a millionaire because all my money's going to pay tuitions. But I know she is not looking to stay in Connecticut. She doesn't see it as an opportunity for growth, and she sees it as a state with obligation and debt, and not a state that provides future opportunities or optimism. And I think that's probably the most scariest statistics of all the statistics. A couple other things. I was looking for a candidate that really made and understood the transportation policy in the state of Connecticut and really made that a priority. Having worked on the transportation strategy bill in 2001, I am so outraged that we haven't had the discipline to follow that plan that we knew would work. And when you look at other states, I just came back from a trip of the Chamber of Commerce in Hartford, sent 4 mayors and business leaders to St. Paul, Minneapolis. And what happened in St. Paul, Minneapolis was 5 years ago, the governor and the legislative leaders and the business community got together and they said, we really need a high-speed rail to go from the airport around the University of Minnesota, where there are 50,000 students, and really need to create some economic development and to really create a regional approach. They did it. They took the gas tax money, they dedicated it to a special fund, and that high-speed rail system is under construction in St. Paul, Minneapolis. They're not a smarter state, they're not a wealthier state. They just have the long-range approach to government and they have the fiscal discipline to make it happen. In St. Paul, Minneapolis, they also meet with the business community. The governor meets regularly with the business community, something that also doesn't happen in the state of Connecticut. And one of the people at the table is Andy Bissett, who's the president, UConn grad, who's also the president of Travelers. And Andy Bissett meets regularly with the leaders in Minnesota, not in Connecticut. And we said to Andy, why aren't you doing this in Hartford? Why aren't you doing this in the capital region? He said, Mary, because there is no table being set by the governor in Connecticut. So we constantly miss out opportunities. I've seen it over and over again. You've read about it. We have a governor who doesn't go to Washington to bring back federal dollars in transportation, leaves 120 spaces blank on the Race to the Top application in Florida or Colorado, doesn't meet with other New England governors to talk about how to bring energy costs down and how to upgrade our antiquated energy system in the state of Connecticut, which is causing us to have high energy costs, which is driving businesses out. This morning we were at a forum at UConn, the Edge Lab for the Connecticut Technology Council, and you know, it was just frustrating to sit there and listen to the candidates, the Republican candidates saying, you know, we need to be more business friendly. But when UTC said they would go any place but Connecticut, why wasn't that governor sitting on the CFO's doorstep waiting for him to come home to find out not only how we could keep the 26,000 jobs in our state, but how we could find out how to take the other 200,000 jobs that they've already moved to other places to get them back here in our state. So I have been so frustrated as a municipal official that has seen state policies that force communities like mine to choose between raising taxes or cutting services, laying off teachers, laying off policemen. I've been frustrated that we don't have a state plan of conservation that is consistent with the economic development plan that encourages towns to protect open space and invest the development back where it should be, where there's infrastructure that already exists. How we have the highest burden on property taxes, which really doesn't make any sense, and it forces us to choke on more stealing property and businesses to pay for that property taxes. I've been frustrated that we don't have a voice in the state for businesses, we don't have a voice in the state for municipal leaders, and we don't have a voice in the state particularly for children, which I think is the future of our state. So 2 months ago, I decided to be that candidate because I've seen the impact that education has had on my life. I said my mom grew up in foster care. My daughter will graduate from Yale University in 2 months. And in just 2 generations, I've seen the impact that education has had on my life and for future generations. I also see the difference of other states that have had state policies that have been smart, that have been disciplined, and have been long-range planning. And I do believe that a governor can make a difference in this state to create the discipline we need to follow long-range plans that will move our state forward. It's not hard. It's not magic. There are stacks, I could bring reports this big of economists, business leaders, everybody who tells you what we need to do in the state of Connecticut. We just haven't had a governor who's done it. So I'm excited to be here. I just need 2 things. I need delegates and money. Otherwise, I'm going to win this race. So I really appreciate the opportunity to be here. I look forward to your questions, and thank you for giving me the time. Thank you, John. Thank you.